A bit of a different video for you guys today. I've been really busy lately. You're still going to get your free videos this week, hopefully, apart from this. And I'm not going to live stream this week either because I've been so busy. But a couple of weeks ago, I had a really good chat with Tristen from Nerdette's NewsStand. And we talked about everything to do with anti-SJW YouTubers and just the whole, I guess, anti-SJW scene and whether they actually even like nerd media in the first place. Now, the interesting thing about Tristen specifically is although she wasn't someone like, the quartering or geeks and gamers and stuff, she was more in anti-SJW circles for a while, but they still made like good content and they do know their stuff about comics. But then slowly they realized how, I guess, full of rubbish anti-SJWs are. So it's really interesting talking to Tristen from this perspective, and she actually even credits people like me for helping her see how, I guess, these anti-SJW YouTubers are just grifters at the end of the day, doing it for money or political agendas. And I'd recommend checking out Tristen's channel anyway. She knows far more about comics and general nerd media than I do. It's obviously less politically focused than my work, but if you like that stuff, I'm sure you'll find something to like about Tristen. And before we start the video, can I just remind you, if you want to support my work going forward, please check out my Patreon down in the description. Of course, I probably made this clear to most people, I'm looking for as many like $1 to $3 patrons as possible, which would make this work more sustainable. Also, check out all my social medias down in the description, especially my Twitter and Instagram, but for community stuff, we also have a Reddit and a Discord. Also, we are less than 1k away from a new chocolate orange. Help me keep growing this channel. For every 5k, we get a new one. I'm trying to hit 2 more by the end of 2021. With that out the way, please enjoy the conversation with Tristen. It will be mostly unedited, but there is a full unedited version on her channel if you want to check that out.
What I want to talk about today is a little bit of stuff we've touched on before, but definitely the idea of the anti-SJW side of fandom, the more hateful side of fandom, at least in my opinion. I know some people don't see it that way, but I also want to pick the Kavernacle as mine. I've been watching him for quite some time. And I originally was like, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. And then slowly I started to realize, even, been doing this for 3 years now, slowly starting to realize, the error of absolutism and the error of my own ways. And I think it's really important to give somebody a chance to talk to other people and give their side of the thing. So today you did a video specifically. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your channel and then, where you stand on kind of the whole wonderful side of YouTube that everybody loves.
On YouTube, like if you compare these anti-SJW channels, even the smaller ones, to something like mine, there's no competition really. So if I'm reaching some people, that's good, but I, obviously know the task is very hard to actually get people to wake up, to the reality of these channels, not just being different politics to me, but pretty much just manipulating people to boost their own viewers and subscribers, really, in my opinion.
Well, I don't think you give yourself enough credit. You personally changed, you and a lot of just education in general, but started getting me to look at things in a different light. So I think even the smallest reach matters sometimes.
I appreciate people like you telling me that, because sometimes you probably know this because you do YouTube as well. You just throw something out there and then you kind of forget about it sometimes. So when people like you and some others, I don't get it loads and loads, but a lot of people saying like, thanks to the Kavernacle, just showing me how ridiculous these people are. I've, rethought a lot of my opinions, and that's something I always like, because sometimes I guess when you're a YouTuber, it's so like not lonely in the sense I'm like really like alone, but it's like it's a very if you've not got a team or anything, you're just all doing it on your own. And especially for me, I'm not American, but I cover a lot of American things, so I can't really talk to a lot of people about this stuff really either. But then people like you saying, even if I change your mind a little bit, that's always very rewarding and validating.
My channel originally, I just started, comic books. That's my thing. Well, I got into the whole, I'm not sure how much but the whole Comicsgate side of things. And I even still listen to a lot of the channels, because I think one thing that's lost upon a lot of people is critical thinking skills and realizing that I can still listen to this, person because I value their opinion, even if I disagree with them. And I think that's something I'm trying to do with my channel, but it's really, really hard when um anything positive on YouTube is really kind of thrown by the wayside, right?
Yeah.
Everything people love drama. Absolutely love drama. If you talk about anti-SJWs or SJWs or oh my god, this is woke, you're gonna get 4 times the views. So it's really, really hard. Like we just seen them that side of YouTube really go mask off with having somebody like I'm shocked that the Alex Jones interview is still online. Watching that kind of makes your mind go mush.
You cannot platform this guy and pretend you're anything other than some weird, like, hard right, far right conspiracy theorist. And a lot of their politics are all extremely, extremely conservative. Like I made the point in the video showing their politics channels. It's literally just like Fox News or something. So for me, really, it's just like that's why I care about this stuff. But for me, why I find it so dangerous is because, especially from the UK, where our political, I guess, spectrum is a lot more in line with like most of the world, where the US one is so shifted to the right, is that a lot of people will start watching these channels because of like they hate The Last Jedi, or they hate Game of Thrones season 8, I think, or they hate something, I don't know, The Last of Us 2 or something. And then you watch these guys and they give you, especially like you're saying, critical thinking skills, they give you an answer maybe to why this is happening. So to them, it's like this woke agenda, which is infiltrating everything. It's like, basically Red Scare repackaged for nerd media. It's like the communists are, the leftists are ruining everything. And these massive corporations only care about social justice compared to profits and stuff. It's bizarre when you think about it, but like to a lot of people, especially younger people, that's why I always say I would hate to have like a 15-year-old son right now, because I'd be really scared of him watching this type of stuff.
It's a Trojan horse.
Exactly. And then the difference is these guys are grifters, but they're also extremely political. Like these guys do care about politics. And whether they know or think they're doing this or not, they are like radicalizing people in certain positions. And obviously there's a big world event at the moment, which has been going on for like near years now. I'm not going to mention it because I'm so hesitant to do it on my own stream. But they radicalize people against certain just basic science, I guess I'll say. So generally, yeah, it's one thing to be critical of like nerd media. And even like I will, even as someone who's left wing and not liberal, I will take criticism of like liberal feminism, for example, like performative feminism that really doesn't get the real issue. I'll take criticism of that all day. But I feel like that's kind of like what anti-SJW, maybe more skeptic YouTube channels used to be like. But now it's just like ridiculous. Like it's like I always say, it's a fan fiction of reality, essentially.
Yeah, and the thing about it is with the whole Trojan horse idea, if you type in Star Wars, that's what's going to come up. So when you've got younger kids coming into those fandoms that maybe don't know those fandoms near as well, they're new fans, right? Whatever, they're coming in for the Mandalorian or the Visions, whatever. And they're going to eventually run across something like that, and that's okay. But as a kid that young, and as a somebody maybe not well versed in the world, they're going to look at it and go, okay, well, this is clearly how it is. This is clearly how Hollywood is, whether it is something simple like, it being woke, but why? That's always the answer. There's never a good answer to why something is woke. And I posed this question off a while ago when it came to the Simu Liu comments, when he totally attacked everybody. Why it was always a person with either a woman or minority, right? It's never, I've not seen quite the attack on something that is straight, white, and male. And is they say they don't want to play identity politics, but that's exactly what they're doing when they're putting something over another one. There's always a flavor of the week, whether it was Shang-Chi. Okay. Shang-Chi's over. Now what's it going to be next? Before that, it was for a long time The Last of Us Part 2. And I often wonder if it is the idea that they are more fans of either A, trolling, or B, politics.
Well, I think maybe the American domination of these channels, I think, speaks a lot to it as well. Because someone said to me, Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers says he views politics as a sport. Like it's just like total, like you're for your team and you're for them totally winning. And I think that kind of plays. Like I was thinking this the other day, like, do these guys ever have an original opinion about anything? Because it's like it's so predictable. It's like you have a new cast of Batwoman and it's a black bisexual woman, and you just know they're going to freak out. Like
Oh,
even
absolutely.
even if Batwoman was originally a black bisexual in the comics, and then the white version is the second one, you know they would freak out. But these channels, that's what I mean. Like you're saying, there's not enough positivity with fan channels. Because do these guys even like this stuff, really?
That's what I
Or is it just a
wondered, the
vehicle for their
same thing.
politics?
Yes, exactly. And it's a lot of times it's like something that I've never heard them ever mention before, but all of a sudden they're a huge fan, and how dare they do this to the source material? It's like, wait,
Yeah.
what? Okay, sure.
Yeah.
And I think I get it. A lot of people are fans, like more of a cult of personality. They really like the person. I've welcomed people on this channel before to debate me, and nobody ever will when it comes to this whole idea of whether it's tokenization or, the comic book industry is over as we know it. Nobody ever comes on and gives a good reason, because they can hide behind their thoughts and ideas throughout the video that they make, but they don't hold up in real life. Like I just seen Forced Adversity was supposed to do a live stream with Ethan Van Sciver, and of course he doesn't want to go live with it because he doesn't want to be fact checked. Okay. So nobody is willing to talk about these things unless it's through a pre-recorded video where I can sell you my bullshit instead of selling you the truth. There was something in your video that I noticed earlier. You were talking about the question Jeremy posed as to when did Hollywood go woke? Can you kind of elaborate what you meant when you were talking about stuff starting to kind of happen in the 60s with corporations?
Yeah, so this is a notion I never understand, and I think it just shows these guys don't really know much about anything. Because the idea that the idea that Hollywood is actually woke anyway is ridiculous. And I'll get into that in a bit. But like the Hollywood used to be very, very conservative, and that's not all the artists in it, because artistic people generally are like anti-establishment, more left-leaning and stuff. So a lot of the
Right.
actors might have been more like this, but Hollywood used to just be controlled by these studios, like little fiefdoms, and you'd sign an actor into a contract for like 5 or 6 films, and you have things like censorship. So the original Scarface, for example, the government are really worried about this film depicting crime as like glamorous. So they have literally a guy sit down at the front and tell you that this film is not promoting crime and crime is bad, blah blah blah. And that is like the old Hollywood, where, and also this is the Hollywood of the Red Scare, where you literally get blacklisted for having left wing politics. So
Right.
that is Hollywood. But then the corporate side has stayed consistent. But what you have in the 60s and 70s is guerrilla filmmakers, where technology is more cheaply available. You have people like obviously like Martin Scorsese, late 60s, early 70s. And then he's also taught people like Oliver Stone at film school. He's another famous like anti-imperialist filmmaker. So this like, it's called like, I think this is called the American New Wave. Just this whole new range of young directors come in and making very political films that are more like anti-establishment or anti, I guess, patriotism, left-wing politics about, war and things like that. So if we're going to talk about like wokeism, Hollywood has always had these woke types, but in the 60s and 70s, some of the most popular movies are made by young filmmakers who have very left-wing politics. Like the thing I always find funny about Star Wars going woke is that George Lucas has both said that the Empire is the USA and the rebels are the NLF, which we know is the Viet Cong. And he also said that people in the USSR had more freedom to make movies on what they want because they weren't as constrained by like capitalism and like market economics and that. So that's and this is a guy they love. Anti-SJWs
Right.
love George Lucas. They put him in all their little stories about George. Bizarrely, I saw him come in the conversation about this war in the Mandalorian, George Lucas and Jon Favreau versus Kathleen Kennedy and Pedro Pascal. I'm like, what has George Lucas got to do with any of this? He came on the set a couple times. Like, he's not involved in making the Mandalorian. So that just shows to a lot of people they don't know what they're talking about. But to get to the final point is that even though you have these filmmakers like Martin Scorsese and more left-wing people like Oliver Stone, for example, the corporate nature of Hollywood has not changed too much. It's less like fiefdoms, but, you know, Disney, giant corporation, owns loads of things you didn't even know it owns, like, you know, majority share in like ESPN, ABC News, things like that. Obviously owns most of the film, has Disney Plus now. Why these corporations might appear, you know, woke, like liberal feminism and things like that, is that just an aesthetic they're using for marketing. At the end of the day, if the right-wing culture, like it was back in like the 1950s, was dominant with the Red Scare, they'd appeal some more to that. These companies don't really care about making money. Even if Kathleen Kennedy, right, is a rich person and she cares about women's rights and stuff, that's one thing. But it's another thing for like this whole massive corporation with like a board of directors and stuff to be pushing a woke agenda. To what end? I don't understand it. If they just did this at a massive loss, then they wouldn't really exist as this giant corporation anymore. So that's what I want to get at, is that left-wing politics has always been pretty synonymous with art, just in general. But the wokeness of Hollywood is the 1960s and 70s. And people, and these guys will say they love these movies. George Lucas was meant to direct Apocalypse Now, because that is like his politics and stuff. He pulled out of it in the end. So, and like all these directors, it's the subtext people miss. Like I've seen other anti-SJWs say like Blade Runner is one of their favorite movies, and I can understand that if you just like the aesthetic. But if you like dig a little bit deeper, then you know in the book and the film, you're probably not going to like the message of this film, really. But yeah, that's just like a general overview. So my main point is, anti-SJWs generally aren't the brightest people, and it gets to the main point. I don't know if you think, are they just dumb, or are they purposely ignoring this stuff?
I think a lot of it has to do with I don't think necessarily the ones at the top are necessarily dumb. I think they're good at marketing. I think they realize who their market is. And I think a lot of it is the ability to create outrage where outrage isn't.
It's like this tunnel vision conservatives have. They watch the movie and like, that was a good movie, but they just think of like the A to B plot. So when someone like me says, oh yeah, one of the themes of Blade Runner 2049 is climate change, they're like, oh, you're ridiculous SJW trying to inject your politics into just a good movie. And it's like, well, you know, if you just open your eyes a tiny bit, it's not very subtle, to be honest.
Well, I think there is a point with every person, whether they're a fan of the, you know, Star Wars or DC or Marvel, where you don't realize, like as a kid reading some comic books or watching a movie, you're not going to realize those subtle politics. And I think a lot of it came from people in their 20s or even 30s having that like awakening moment where they realize, oh my God, everything is political and now I hate it. And they can make something out of that, whether it's outrage or a channel. And if you think about it, a lot of the stuff, like specifically what my channel is about, comic books, have been political since the inception. And a lot of people differentiate that idea by saying, but now they are less nuanced. Well, they weren't nuanced before either. I think it's that awakening moment that we maybe have as adults, realizing that it's always been there. We just were so blind to it. And now people realize it and they hate it and they can make profit off of it.
Yeah. And it's even like, you know, Superman comics or Captain America comics where they're like punching Hitler and what do you think this is? And you know, the Punisher is like a disillusioned Vietnam vet originally. Is that not political? Like he's broken by like one of America's wars or something. And it's like, I made the video about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Apparently he's gone woke with Captain America, but it's like Captain America has said so much stuff about America specifically. Like he basically wants to like burn down the entire country in some of these arcs. So it's like, you know, but that gets to your point. Would they care so much if it was Wyatt Russell's character? I forgot what his name is.
John Walker.
Yeah, if John Walker was struggling, if he was like, I've been to Afghanistan and it was pointless, and now I don't know if I can represent America, would they freak out about that as much? But it's a black guy saying, and there's obviously the, you know, former black Captain America saying, well, I don't feel any connection to America because look how they treat us. And then to them, it's like, oh my God, woke politics, ruining everything. It's like, why? Like, do black people not feel that way? It's not like they made this stuff up. It's very in line with both like current political discourse, but also like historically in the comics as well. It's not something new. So that's why it always gets my point. I'm like, do these people just really not know anything, and are they even fans, or is it more profitable, which probably is, to pretend it's a recent trend? Like Alex Jones was saying in that video, it's like since Obama, like Hollywood has gone woke, and it's like, what? Like since what, 2008? That's when Hollywood went woke. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's been a lot long. And you know what? You were talking earlier about its marketing. If you can appeal on a level where you have diversity, you're going to appeal to a bigger market, right? Your test market, everything's going to be better. You're going to have people that want to see it more. So is it actually woke, or is it literally capitalism? Which is a lot of what, people, well, capitalism. Yes, let the market decide that. And clearly the market is doing well. Like, I constantly see this: Marvel is over. It is done. Like the $1 billion industry of Marvel is over. Really, I'm amazed because what was it? Shang-Chi just made is up to breaking even and doing even better, like, than they expected. So prove it. Otherwise, your claims are. What's weird to me is that people buy into it. Like, you should see the obvious hyperbole within these things. What makes you inherently think, like, when it comes to today's political climate, is the fact that diversity and LGBTQ people just being people? What makes you think that these people think it is political inherently?
It's a problem with the anti-SJW ecosystems. I don't know how much these people are genuine or not, but it's obviously like with anything, the representation of anyone who isn't like a straight white man basically really pisses people off, because I guess, they're a lot of these people are in a bubble. And also with America, it's just been very politicized to the extent is like anything diverse is woke. But then, like a lot of the time, conservatives, Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers in my video yesterday was saying, look, we have a diverse team. So you're playing this identity politics thing against me when I'm criticizing you for being a bigot, and you're saying, well, look, I got a diverse team. It doesn't really deflect you from criticism, but to them, it's like, it's just a conservative belief, isn't it? It's like, although this isn't all conservatives now, it's like the nuclear family, a marriage is between a man and a woman. A lot of them still believe that. You have to, they're totally against transgender people even existing. So to all them, that is a political stance to take. It's not just like you were outlining. It's not like an identity thing. It's a political thing, and it's not something new. Like, think about how hard it was for African Americans to appear visually in media, or I've made a whole video about Twilight in terms of how Native Americans were depicted. And because of like the dominance of white people in institutions like Hollywood and stuff, these stereotypes that they perpetuate are things people are largely comfortable with. And in my opinion, it's a symptom of a largely racist, inherently racist society. Not saying everyone is like in the KKK or something, but it's just something we all grow up with. And then, you're probably old enough to remember, and it's still a thing. Riz Ahmed has talked about this, how we depict Muslims in media. How many positive representations of Muslims do we get in films? Either they are evil villains in a terrorism film, or they are like bystanders who seem to be a bit ambivalent to like the carnage. So like, that's why I hate the Hurt Locker, the film, because basically every character apart from this one kid is evil, and then the rest of them all look like villainous characters. So to a lot of people, it's not as, I guess, ridiculous to them that showing a Muslim person in a positive light, or showing Muslim culture in a positive light, is like very political to them, because in their minds this thing isn't something positive. Or like you were saying, gay people, trans people, while me and you might think like, what's the problem? Like, they're just representing a demographic in this country or in the world. But to them, it's like, these people shouldn't exist, and I don't want my kids growing up thinking this stuff is normal. So that's why I laugh a bit with the anti-SJWs trying to portray themselves as a bit like modern, and maybe even more like libertarian, where it's like your policing of the culture is literally stuff that like, really religious Republicans always do. And I don't know how you don't realize that is just an extension of that. But like I was saying earlier, it's like, that's why I do like criticizing this stuff, because I see it, even though maybe not as apparent to many people, I see it as like a way into that sort of mindset where you can be fairly modern, where you're not like, you don't have this outright hatred, like you're not going to go in the street and harass these people, but because of what you've been listening to, you believe, I guess, seeing more of them and stuff like that is some sort of political position. And lots of white people say, well, we don't need diversity because most Americans who play games are white or something. And it's like, is that really a good argument? You don't want to learn about other cultures. You just want to have like John Walker from Captain America or Falcon the Winter Soldier is your hero forever. You want this generic white person. Again, like you were saying, their arguments are very easy to deconstruct, but they will never defend it against someone like, you were saying forced adversity and stuff. It's not surprising they wouldn't want to do that on a live stream.
I seen that Eric July, Young Ripa, had quite a lengthy video about tokenization. And anytime it comes to, nerd media, I like listening to other people's opinions. I did a video debunking the argument. Anytime anybody is, so let's say you used Batwoman earlier. Well, in the show, she was replaced by a Black woman, right? That is a token. Okay, that was the general argument. It was lazy. It was I think that he said creatively bankrupt, something very similar to that nature.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, have you comics have done that all along, right? If it wasn't for Batman, you would be calling Batgirl a token. You would be calling Robin a token. You would be calling Batwing. Every single person you're calling lazy, which means you're telling me that stories like The Killing Joke, the most, one of the most loved Joker origin stories, is lazy.
Yeah.
Okay, come on my channel. Few back and forth emails, and it was ghosted. All right. Yeah, that's what I kind of figure. If you can't defend an argument, then don't pretend like you can. And it's really unfortunate. What bugs me, I guess, is the best way to put it, is that people buy into it because they think these people are being intellectually honest, when the root of all of it is literally intellectual dishonesty. You're not telling the full story. Just like you say, the media has this agenda. Let's not pretend like you don't have one too. We all have our biases, but there's a difference between me being biased towards DC Comics and you having an agenda against tokenization, when that is something that has existed all along. And I think it's a shame because unless you seek out the information, you're going to believe it. And people believe it generally from people they trust or think they trust. And it's gotten to the point where then they'll come to my comment section and say, well, you're wrong. You had this wrong in your video and you had it's very easy to look it up and go, hey, nope, this person existed here. They were, in your version of the definition, tokenized in 1942. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not something that people ever want to be honest about, and people eat it up, and I don't get it. I don't understand why people do. And I think it's just the idea of, like you said a while back in the beginning, they're a fan of the politics. American politics to them are like, what are those old soap operas, The Young and the Restless? They look at it as more as a game than as something as a real fandom should look at. And it kind of makes everybody by comparison get pushed down in that algorithm, right?
Yeah.
So, and then when somebody watches my channel, again with that Trojan horse, they're going to get maybe recommended to Ethan Van Sciver, and then on and on. And it's going to, it really is kind of radicalizing a young, impressionable youth at this point.
It's a bit depressing because Stan Lee was I wouldn't call him like a left-wing person, but he's a very liberal person. Like, he had a whole politics section in his comics for years, like rejecting the politics of like hate and bigotry. And it's the problem with like many figures like George Lucas, Stan Lee, is like these fans are so dominated by these toxic like elements, is that they rehabilitate these people to be what they want. So George Lucas is for the fans, apparently, right? He's for these fans. Where like Kathleen Kennedy hates Star Wars and she exists to slowly destroy it. Even though they've been pals for years. They worked on Indiana Jones together and stuff. Like these people are good friends. It's like Jon Favreau, I think, recently came out and said how much he likes working with her. And it's like, you've been telling me for like 3 years, Anti-SJWs, these people absolutely hate each other. And there's a civil war in Lucasfilm. And then, like I said, that's the dangerous thing, is that you live in this fake reality where this stuff is just, and it just like, what annoys me as well is like these people are all very capitalist as well, like very pro-capitalist. And that's what I don't understand as well, is like
So you're very pro-capitalist. These films are clearly making a lot of money, and you don't understand maybe why they're like expanding their stories. Like even say let's say they're tokenizing people. I don't believe it, but let's say they're doing that, right? It's clearly working. But these people think they're like, the narrative is Marvel is losing money, it's being destroyed, it's going to go under or something like that. And it's like, well, clearly appealing to like a more like Asian market with something like Shang-Chi is like working for them. But also it gets to an interesting point with tokenization. What you were talking about is you really are doomed either way. So for example, in The Last of Us, there's a trans character, and part of their story is about like coming out as transgender, right?
Right.
So
From the
but
Seraphites.
yeah, but lots of people say, well, that's tokenization. But if they were just trans and that wasn't a part of their story, then that's also tokenization. So you can't really win. It's like Miles Morales, you can talk about him being like, I think he's half Puerto Rican and half African American, and you can make
Right.
that a part of his story, right? But they'll cry about that, like woke politics. But if you don't make it part of his story, and it's like, why did you race swap Spider-Man? It's like you can't win with these people. Like, what do they want? Just like a generic white man as or woman as every single character.
Something I still believe to this day. I've always said there are no bad characters. It's who's writing them, right? The ability to write someone as a good character has to be done with finesse, and it was eventually done. And that character is beloved now. Like in a very short time, the character, I think 2008, I want to say, it's not that long, right? For a character to be so widely known and be made a household name. Own video game, now a dual video game. It's working. People want these diverse characters, and even if it's one that's worked now, there's going to be more that's worked. There's more for DC, like Kate Kane in the comics. When she did come out, she was loved because she was written really well. The art was beautiful. These things can be done. But in 2008, when either one of those characters were introduced, nobody was going, oh my God, it's woke. That kind of I guess speak language has only arisen maybe since the whole Trump thing, and I don't know if it's at the fault of not obviously him, but the social division around him.
I'd agree with like the polarization of someone like Donald Trump, and it also so happens nearly all of these anti-SJW YouTubers are also like still massive Trump supporters. It's not really something. It's something you can't like disconnect from the polarization of this stuff. The funny thing is, though, I would say in America it translates to the general culture a lot more. In the UK, no one I knew, I think I had 5 or 6 friends who all completed The Last of Us, and none of them knew about any of the controversy. Like literally.
Wow, seriously? That's amazing.
Yeah. But the thing is, because people in the UK don't live on like the American, like the thing is, I think like 50% of my audience are American, and the next largest is like 10% British. So most people don't really, in the UK at least, pay attention to this stuff as much. It's more of a fringe. Where in America, because of like, I think to ties to the Trump, it feels like it's a very real part of the culture, because obviously you have this like 24/7 news media who will like, they'll run stories about this. Like it's not just the quartering geeks and gamers who will talk about like the wokeness of Hollywood or comics and stuff. It's people like Tucker Carlson and Fox News. It's like a national thing. So it gets it's like, and why it's so helpful for right-wing people in general is seen as like a general attack on like American-ness by the left. And it has massive parallels. What's happening with like nerd media to what's happening in the real world is that the fact that some people think Joe Biden is like legit a communist or something is completely laughable to me. But like, or even someone like AOC is like this communist agitator or something. It's just like this is the world a lot of Americans live in, really. And I feel like that's reflected on YouTube. And sadly, for a lot of people, YouTube, Reddit, things like that, they're dominated by Americans because they're like some of the biggest users of social media in the English language. So it really enters the entire online culture. Whereas I think it also, the good thing for me, it doesn't really infiltrate the British regular culture. But in the US, I feel like this stuff really does enter mainstream culture in general. And that's something that, part of the reason I like talking about this stuff is because I feel like it does have an effect, but also it has an effect in ways maybe is very private, like it's you and your computer watching hours of these guys talk politics and nerd media, but their discussion of nerd media is nearly just an extension of politics. It's really not about, did you like this story? Did you like these characters? Review this stuff. It's like, yeah, I don't like it because it was woke, or they betrayed the fans because of some woke agenda, not just because I didn't like it. Like, you can dislike the new Star Wars. I hate most of them, but I wouldn't blame my problems on some sort of woke agenda. I just don't see that in that film franchise, which has gone less political since George Lucas left, who's their hero. So it's all very bizarre, but I don't think it can be treated very lightly, because I think the real consequences are very damaging to people.
You know, just out of curiosity, your friends that didn't know the controversy, did they enjoy the game?
Yeah, most of them say it's their favorite game of all time. Which is
I
really
love
funny.
the game. I reviewed it after beating it, and I was like, you know, I love this game. And initially, with everything going on, I did speak out about the flagging channels, and everyone's like, "Oh, you traitor! How could you like this?" Because it was a good game. It was fun. It was supposed to be. I mean, it was supposed to be a little depressing, but it was fun, and I loved the first game, and I liked the second one. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's another thing I also noticed when it comes to this is there's no positivity whatsoever. There is no, okay, we talked about Shang-Chi for 2 weeks. You know, we talked about what Simu Liu said. We talked about Cardi B or whatever. I forget who it was that the whole situation was. Now we're going to review the movie. No.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about more controversy surrounding it. And I think that's even like recently I just reviewed the first 3 episodes of Why the Last Man. And I was waiting for it because I suspected that it was going to be a big deal. But it wasn't, because nobody knows, you know, it's a smaller property as far as comics go. But it's very political. But
that's a really good point. Sorry, I'll let you finish. I want to
no.
that afterwards.
I just find it interesting that when it's something less known like that it's just thrown by the wayside, but an Aquaman cartoon can offend people.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, because I wrote this on Twitter. I was playing through Watch Dogs Legion, and it's obviously set in London, and it's made, I think the director's a British person as well. And it's literally one of the most political games I've ever played. Like, literally talking straight up about the rise of fascism in Britain, literally pulling so many parallels towards our current state of politics, talking about how Brexit has really messed up the country, privatizing the healthcare service and stuff like that. And I'm playing this game as someone who's a very political person. I'm like, damn, this game is so political. I can't believe Anti-SJWs missed it. But it's a perfect case study. Of course they missed it, because maybe they didn't even play it because it's, you know, it's a popular game, but not the most popular game. But even if they played it, they probably wouldn't actually realize what is going on in this game. It's like, I saw other people saying, oh, they're going to make District 9 sequel political, or Matrix 4 political, and it's like blowing my mind. I'm just like, yeah, don't make these heavily political original films. Don't make the sequels political, please, because it's just like this bizarre thing. And like you were saying, they often miss stuff. It's like they put the politics in stuff that is really not that political, like He-Man or She-Ra. But you're watching a TV show that is heavily political. I'm playing a game which is heavily political, and it's like, we don't really care about that because of 2 things: don't understand it, and it won't get the clicks, basically. Related to the fans thing makes me laugh, because like and you see it a lot with a lot of properties, but like The Last of Us 2 especially makes me laugh. It's like, you betrayed the fan. It's like, this guy, he made the first game. Like, who's he betraying? Like, you either like it or you don't. He doesn't owe you anything. He made a game. Lots of people liked it. He made a second game. It was more divisive to people. But that's about it. He doesn't owe you. He doesn't owe you keeping a certain character alive because you liked his first game. Can you imagine, like, I don't know, like someone reacting to The Godfather Part 2 being like, oh, you betrayed the fans because Michael killed Fredo at the end or something. It's like, he doesn't owe you anything. It's a guy's like creative thing. Obviously, like there's a money making angle, but when you're someone like Neil Druckmann with Naughty Dog, you can make whatever you want. So that always makes me laugh. And it's like with Zack Snyder, before he owned them all in the live stream, they were saying Zack Snyder, he loves the fans, where DC hate the fans. And it's like, he doesn't, to be honest, he probably likes the fans who like his work, but he doesn't think about you when he's making his movies at all. Like, he doesn't care what you guys thought of Batman vs Superman when he's making Justice League. He just doesn't think about those things.
The thing is what drives me crazy is talking specifically, you can relate it to anything, but because that exists, that Snyder Cut exists, doesn't take away from me reading the comics. It's not the same version. I can like that version. I can also like the Nolan version. I can go back. Those things do not take away. Those originality of those IPs are still there. And a lot of times on my channel, you know, with the comics, I say, oh, well, they're playing with our toys wrong. But at the end of the day, they're not my toys to be played with wrong. I have to realize that there is an ability for different versions of Batman to exist. Even if I don't like one of them, that one maybe somebody else, you know, likes a little bit more and they can enjoy it. And that's what fandom, I think, is supposed to be about, is the ability to, you know, have different versions and still enjoy that property together. But that's kind of gone anymore. There's no set out way to tell what the definition of woke is even more. I actually did a series a long time ago, kind of trying to set those definitions out, only to realize that they change with every single channel, every single person. Like virtue signaling is now just having a person of color in your movie. What? Or changing your bio. I know there was a lot of people mad about when, you know, Pride Month, everybody changing. That's marketing. That's what companies have done all along before even social media existed. Maybe not for Pride Month, that's a newer thing. But, you know, like Kellogg's, they had a purple box with Pride, and I seen a bunch of videos, people were mad. I'm like, what? You're mad about, like, but you're...
The thing is as well is like, you can legit be mad because a lot of these companies are trash, but you're mad they did it. You're not mad like, oh, they did the rainbow flag, but here's a history of this company like being really anti-gay and it's just using it for optics. They're just being like, oh, it's gone woke because the CEO of Starbucks is now like a communist or something. Like it's ridiculous, because this is what my problem is, that they all claim to be capitalists. Can you not see it? Like you were saying, it's just marketing. It's just aesthetics. They don't give a shit about gay rights, trans rights, Starbucks, all these awful companies. Even you have like military companies doing it. It's like, these people don't give a shit. So just wake up and like that's actually something I would say that sometimes not like the zealots, but there's an anti-SJW misplacement of their anger at leftists for liberals. And to a lot of people, like you were saying, what's the definition? Joe Biden apparently is the same as me or something, people would normally say, because Joe Biden's a Democrat, I say I'm left wing, so we must be the same. But it's like, for me, I'm like, as like leftist anti-capitalist, I hate corporations doing shit for Pride Month because it's so not sincere and it's just trying to like pink wash their exploitation. But that's what I think we can have some common ground with. But then like we've been saying, it's been so shifted now. Like anything is woke tokenization. It's not just something like that may, I don't know, be like a rare example, or maybe there's like some foundation to it. It's like, no, it's just anything. So I don't feel like it's easy now to bridge the gap with people, and literally most people are just going to have to go through the evolution like you, which not everyone's ever going to be able to do. Like you said, you're more open-minded, so you'd always listen to different people. But if you're not like that, then how are you ever going to get out of the echo chamber?
We went somewhere in America with the idea that social division and divisive topics are more important.
Like we've been saying, it's so translatable to American politics. It's like culture war issues. And obviously I feel like the right do this way more, because the thing is, from a British perspective, the right in America and even anti-SJWs, they're so mask off, they don't even pretend to try and help you. It's not like they're pretending and then they're like looting your pockets. It's actually like, yeah, you don't want universal healthcare, America, which most developed countries have. Enjoy your massive medical bills and paying for your relatives who's died, paying for their medical bills and stuff, because like that's like socialism. And then also, even if they're not talking about the issues, it's cultural war distraction. It's like that's why I think the right have done such an effective job, and like the YouTube stuff is an extension of this. Is for them, there is no separation of economic, cultural, political. It's all just one thing. And when it's all one thing, you can, and we see in America's Second Amendment of trans rights is the brand new one for Republicans and stuff. It's just to distract you while they like loot your pockets, basically. And I think the Republicans are a clear example of that. But also, as a left-wing person, I think the Democrats do that plenty as well. I just think Republicans are just a way worse example, in my opinion. It's culture war stuff is so effective, and that's why like I don't know what starts it. Does the political news stuff start it and the anti-SJWs pick up on it, or do they manufacture it themselves? And then, you know, it's like a little like little cycle, which I guess like feels like it never ends. And like you were saying, once they're done with one thing, Shang-Chi's not going to be very popular for content soon. Well, what's next? Like probably looking at their schedule. How do we spin the new Hawkeye trailer about being woke or something? Is it woke because Kate Bishop's in it maybe and she's a prominent character?
Exactly.
Yeah, basically they're looking for anything. I'm trying to think like what's the next big one. I'm trying to think of what's coming out. I mean, like there's loads of things you can imagine.
The
like
Eternals, maybe.
Yeah, the Eternals, or like the new Thor movie where Natalie Portman apparently is gonna like have the hammer and stuff. Like they're gonna go crazy over that. So like you but the thing is, that's how depressing is it? Even if the new Thor movie was the best movie ever, right? And they loved it, we still know those videos are coming. Like 100%. There's no doubt they're not coming. And new Black Panther will have that as well. Everything like that will have some sort of massive backlash, which is completely manufactured. And that's why like I hope sometimes like with my videos crossing over a bit into this like nerd media stuff, is that I hope people who don't know my politics can watch it. And at the very least, and I try and say this in my videos, these people are just like scamming you. They don't like it. They're using you for ad revenue and clicks and subs.
So what did you guys think of the conversation? Any points you liked that either of us brought up? Let me know your opinion down in the comments. If you like the video, please leave a like. If you want to follow me on social media, at the Kavernacle on Twitter and Instagram. Like I said before, come check out our communities on Reddit and Discord. Support my work on Patreon if you feel obliged to. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.